EPD will be hosting this public hearing via Zoom. Zoom is a free web conferencing platform that also allows participation by phone. I see that people are starting to join us via Zoom today. Thank you for your patience as we allow a few minutes for participants to join our virtual Zoom public hearing. Please note that all participants are joining in mute-only mode and can only be unmuted by the host. If you're joining us on the Zoom web conferencing platform, we ask that you please turn off your video during this hearing so that it does not interfere with our recording of this hearing. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this public hearing. My name is Anna Aponte and I'm one of the managers in the Planning and Support Program of Georgia's EPD Air Protection Branch. Today, the Air Protection Branch is hosting this public hearing via Zoom. Again, Zoom is a free web conferencing platform that allows participation by phone. Today's date is Tuesday, August 30th, 2022. The time is now 6:03 p.m. The purpose of this hearing is to take comments on the proposed construction and operating permits for both GRP Franklin and GRP Madison renewable energy facilities in Carnesville and Colbert, Georgia, respectively. To provide background on the facilities and the permitting action, the manager of the Stationary Source Permitting Program, Stephen Damaski, will now present some supporting information.
Good evening. This is a public hearing for GRP Franklin and Madison draft air permits. My name again is Stephen Damaski. I'm the Stationary Source Permitting Program Manager, and it is August 30th, 2022. Why are we here? Georgia Renewable Power Air Quality Permits. The permit conditions and concerns are very similar to alike between the sources. We are holding this one public hearing so that both permits can be addressed. All comments made during this public hearing will be considered for both unless you specify that your comments are specific to one source. We will consider them both for both sources in the permitting process. This public hearing will be recorded and recording will be placed on EPD's air announcement webpage probably later this week. The public hearing is again August 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. Hearing announcement was made via public advisory, public notice, and the webpage. A little bit of history for the two facilities. Franklin location had previous permits issued for Earth Resources, Plant Carl, and Plant Carl. Fuels included chicken litter, waste, cooking oil, grease, and animal fat, but these facilities were never constructed. In August 2015, a permit was issued to GRP Franklin for boiler firing clean cellulosic biomass and propane. And then in October 2015, a permit was issued to GRP Madison for boiler firing again, clean cellulosic biomass and natural gas. 2018 and 2019 permits were amended to allow distillate fuel oil, creosote treated railroad ties, and other treated railroad ties. August 4th, 2020, Governor Kemp signed House Bill 857 to prohibit the burning of certain chemically treated wood products for purposes of commercial energy generation. And August 5th of 2020, permits were amended to remove treated railroad ties from the list of allowed fuels. The overall facility process description: the equipment at GRP Franklin and Madison have the same size and design. This is a boiler that is 700 million BTUs per hour burning clean cellulosic biomass and distillate fuel oil. Control equipment on this boiler includes selective catalytic reduction, oxidation catalyst, cyclone, and electrostatic precipitator. Belt dryers. Biomass belt dryers were previously used to dry the fuel before it was combusted in the boilers. The belt dryers have been removed from the facilities and the permits as of these latest permits. The fuels burned in GRP boilers are limited to clean cellulosic biomass. This is defined in 40 CFR 241.2 and in condition 3.3.6 of each of the permits. This includes clean bark, sawdust, untreated wood pellets, tree trimmings, stumps, peanut shells, and many other biomass materials. This does not include wood treated with chromate, copper arsenate, or similar compounds. The other fuel is distillate fuel oil for these boilers. Railroad ties are prohibited at all times. The key environmental regulations are for boilers. This is 40 CFR 60 subpart D sub B. This is the standard of performance of industrial, commercial, institutional steam generating units. This limits both PM and visible emissions. And then 40 CFR 63 subpart 6J is the national emission standards for hazardous air pollutants for industrial, commercial, and institutional boilers at area sources. Again, this limits PM under the same conditions as subpart DB, and visible emissions are limited to 10%. 40 CFR 60 subpart 4C, commercial and industrial solid waste incinerators, does not apply because it is clean cellulosic biomass and it is considered a non-hazardous secondary material. The key permit conditions are highlighted on this slide. NOx and carbon monoxide emissions are limited to 249 tons per year so that facilities are minor sources for prevention of significant deterioration regulations, and that is in condition 2.1.1. Fuels limited to clean cellulosic biomass and distillate fuel. Railroad tie derived fuels are prohibited at all times. And then we must determine if biomass feedstock is contaminated with lead or chromate copper arsenate and remove the material before it reaches the boilers per condition 527. Must visibly inspect 2 fuel shipments per day to determine if prohibited materials are present, and must conduct weekly inspections of fugitive dust sources to minimize fugitive dust from the facilities. PM 2.5 National Ambient Air Quality Standards established by EPA determine a violation of the PM 2.5 NACs. This is the long-term standard as the annual arithmetic mean averaged over 3 years being greater than 12.0 micrograms per meter cubed. And then the 98th percentile of 24-hour daily average, which is averaged over 3 years, as greater than 35 micrograms per meter cubed. An exceedance of the PM 2.5 NACs is a short-term measurement, and this is the 24-hour PM 2.5 measurement greater than 35 micrograms per meter cubed. You can have multiple exceedances without having a violation of the NACs. It is not appropriate to compare a 24-hour concentration to the 12 microgram per meter cubed standard, since one is a short-term measurement while the other is a long-term standard. And EPD does not have any reason to believe that there are any PM 2.5 NACs violations near these facilities. The next steps in the permitting process are to receive verbal comments now and written comments through September 6th. We will evaluate the verbal and written comments and then respond to public comments in writing in an addendum to the permit narrative. Based on those comments, we will make changes to the draft permit as appropriate. Thank you again for joining us. I will hand it back over to Anna Aponte.
Thank you, Mr. Damaski. This hearing was advertised by contacting individuals with a known interest using EPD's permitting notice, public notice email subscriber list. It is also published in the legal organs of each county and by posting the notice and associated materials onto EPD's public notice and draft permit websites. The public notice period began on July 28th and the comment period continues through September 6th. Today's hearing is not for the purpose of answering questions or having discussion. This is a public hearing to receive public comment on the proposed draft permits for GRP Franklin and Madison. Your comments will become an official part of the EPD records within the narrative addendum of the permits. All comments made will be considered and addressed as part of the final permitting actions. Any changes made to the permits based on the comments will also be included in the narrative. If you have questions regarding this permitting action, please contact Stephen Damaski at stephen.damaski@dnr.ga.gov. His email address will be included is on the slide that is on your screen. At today's hearing, we have participants who have joined the web conferencing platform. And I do see, we also have participants who have joined the Zoom conference by phone only. If you have joined this hearing on the Zoom web conference platform and would like to make a comment, we ask that you take a moment to raise your hand using the reactions menu at the bottom of your Zoom screen or open the chat feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Once the chat dialog box is open on your screen, please indicate that you would like to make a comment during today's hearing. There's a welcome message with instructions for doing so in the chat dialog box. We will be saving the transcripts of the chat dialog box for our records. If you have joined this hearing by phone, we ask that you press *9 to indicate that you would like to make a comment. I will call out the names or phone numbers of those who have indicated that they would like to make a comment. When I call each name or number, I will unmute your connection so that you can make your comment. So that everyone has an opportunity to speak today, I ask that each commenter be as brief and concise as possible and limit comments to 3 minutes or less. To aid in this timekeeping, a 3-minute timer will appear on my screen once a commenter has begun. If all who have wished to make a comment have done so and additional time is available, more time may be granted in 3-minute intervals to the commenters who wish to have additional time to make additional comments. Please speak clearly so others can hear you on the Zoom meeting and so that we can accurately capture your comments in our recording of this meeting. At this time, I will pause for a moment to allow you to indicate that you'd like to make a comment, either by raising your hand in Zoom, by using the Zoom chat dialog box, or by pressing *9 on your phone. I see that Gina Ward has indicated that you would like to make a comment. I will unmute your microphone and you can speak. Thank you. My name is Gina Ward. I presently live in Hull, Georgia. I'm a former resident of Colbert, Georgia, living 4,000 feet from the stack. I had to leave my serene, wooded, custom-built home because of GRP's pollution. The noise pollution broke me, and the air pollution was making me sick. Some of the data I have sent to you already and will be sharing in this statement was recorded on my back porch, and it was my favorite feature of my home. At this point, I do want to say thank you to the Air Division and the Ambient Air Division for providing an opportunity to co-locate our purple air monitors and providing insights to data and references that aided me in developing a better understanding of data interpretation. Basically put, GRP is poorly sited. It is close to homes, churches, and schools. In a 1 mile radius, there are approximately 200 homes. In a 5 mile radius, there are 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 3 daycare centers, and a population of around 6,000. A subdivision is literally across the street. Since July 2019, citizens have worked tirelessly to make sense of what is in our air, water, and on our land. One of these initiatives involved the purchase of 2 purple air monitors so that we would know just how our environment had been affected. In my written comment, I provided a table to you as an example of what the community was enduring. From that table, I will share with everyone else. January 6, 2021 at 5 a.m., lasting until January 15th at 9 a.m., this range of hours of pollution was from 7 to 47 hours straight. We were being bombarded with pollution day after day, hour after hour, and these levels that I'm speaking of exceed 12 micrograms per cubic meter. In that time span, that was 140 hours of this type of pollution in 10 days. January 2022 actually looks a lot worse. From January 12th to 16th, we were exposed to 75 hours. January 18th to the 23rd, 94 hours. January 25th to 28th, 84 hours. And during that time span, the particulate matter 2.5 range was from 13 to 26. That's 253 hours in 17 days. From February 1 to 4, 72 hours, February 7 to 17th, 115 hours. So while you say that they are compliant according to the National Air Quality Standards, it's a very watered down average is what you're getting. From June 2020 to 2021, there were 131 of these emission events, meaning there were 6 hours or more at levels over 12 micrograms per cubic meter. This year, just from January 1st to August 27th, we've already had 89 of those over 6 hour events. The EPA standards, they are averages of averages. Citizens have not been informed as to who is monitoring other than private citizens who finance the cost of the monitors. Self-regulation by a major source of pollution is not protection for communities. I disagree strongly on their compliance, as the EPA requires 3 years of data to determine compliance. And the only monitoring that we know of, as I stated, is being done by us. We also need some transparency. We would like to see signage at the power plant warning individuals that they are breathing air with carcinogens in it. Public comment periods need to be posted with signs at sites of major polluters, not in special emails or buried in a newspaper article. We need impact studies and baseline readers to be performed prior to permitting such an operation. When GRP started, none of us had ever dreamed that this would be a problem for us. Therefore, we had not purchased air monitors. We had not checked our water or air quality. The EPD needs to set up monitors around major sources of pollution and make that information public and accessible. I respectfully request that the Georgia Environmental Protection Division protect the citizens from Title V sources of pollution and deny GRP Franklin and GRP Madison the permit until more protection for human health and the environment is in place. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comment. Next, I have Chris Poole has indicated that you would like to make a comment. I will unmute your microphone and you can speak.
Good evening. GRP Madison Renewable Energy Facility LLC and GRP Franklin Renewable Energy Facility LLC appreciate the opportunity to present comments on the draft Title V air permits for the facilities. I'm Chris Poole with Trinity Consultants, the firm that is handling the Title V permit application for the facilities, and I would like to take a few moments to provide the following brief comments in support of the draft permits. Both facilities supply electricity to the power grid for residential and commercial consumption. Each generates up to 65 megawatts of electricity from a turbine utilizing steam produced by the combustion of clean cellulosic biomass. The facilities are considered carbon neutral green energy. The biomass comes from managed forests where trees are regrown and remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Further, if the biomass combusted by the facilities were landfilled instead of being combusted, then the biomass would degrade to methane, which has a global warming potential 25 times higher than carbon dioxide. Therefore, the facilities are an important part on the fight against climate change. Air emissions from the facilities have been regulated under construction permits issued by the Georgia EPD in 2015. The Title V permits are intended to consolidate all the requirements applicable to the facilities under state and federal air regulations, but do not impose new requirements on the facilities. The draft Title V permits incorporate the air emission standards for all emission generating operations at the facilities, including the boilers, emergency engines, cooling towers, and storage silos. The facilities use state-of-the-art advanced technologies to control the emissions of a wide range of pollutants, including particulate matter, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, and organic hazardous air pollutants. Pollution control mechanisms used by the facility are more effective than numerous other wood-fired boilers of similar or larger size in Georgia, which only incorporate air emission controls for particulate matter. The results of monitoring and performance testing of the facilities from 2020 and 2021 have demonstrated compliance with all applicable air emission standards. The facilities requested more stringent emission limits to be categorized as minor sources of hazardous air pollutants and criteria pollutants under federal new source review. By doing this, the facilities voluntarily accepted additional emissions testing and monitoring requirements associated with the minor source status, which included a total of 18 pollutants. This is significantly more testing and monitoring than is required from similar biomass-fired boilers in Georgia that are only required to regularly test for 4 pollutants. The facilities also voluntarily accepted emission limits to reduce the amount of nitrogen oxide and carbon monoxide emissions and are equipped with continuous emission monitors for these pollutants. Many similar boilers are not required to continuously monitor emissions of these pollutants and emit these pollutants in significantly higher quantities. Finally, the Madison County Clean Power Coalition has submitted comments regarding the draft Title V permit for the Madison facility. The MCPC states that it has collected 2 years of monitoring data using purple air monitors from various locations in the proximity of the plant. The facility has not been provided all of this data. Without information used to cite the monitors, such as the underlying protocols, quality assurance procedures, and modeling analyses, including meteorological data, the facility has been unable to verify the accuracy of this data. Further, these monitors measure PM 2.5 in the ambient air from numerous sources. Other than the facility, these sources include cars, trucks, railroads, agricultural operations, other industries and utilities, open burning and other fire events, and natural sources. Therefore, even if the MCPC data is accurate, the concentrations of PM 2.5 identified by the monitors would not be attributed exclusively to the facility. In fact, a review of the data indicates that some of the highest concentrations of PM 2.5 were identified during periods that the facility was not even operating or emitting. The facilities appreciate the opportunity to provide these comments in the support of the issuance of the Title V permits as drafted by EPD. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for your comment. Next, I have Maria Antonetti. You have indicated that you would like to make a comment. I will unmute your microphone and you can speak.
Thank you, everyone, for hosting this and for your public comments and concern for our local environment in Madison and Franklin counties. My name is Maria Antonetti. I'm a resident in Comer, Georgia, within a 5-mile radius of GRP Madison, but would like my comments to be considered for both GRP Franklin and GRP Madison plants. First, I want to discuss the issue of having green emissions in our facilities here in Madison and Franklin counties. These are not green. It's been tested and tried time and time again, and research actually shows that air pollution with a PM of 2.5 travels larger than a 30-mile radius. Therefore, the air pollution affected by GRP Madison and GRP Franklin is actually affecting residents into Oconee County all the way into South Carolina, where GRP Madison and GRP Franklin cannot actually mitigate any controls for their air pollution. Unfortunately, me and my husband, as we purchased our first home here in Comer, were not informed of the effects of residents in this area before purchasing our home, and weren't aware of the major pollution that GRP was affecting in our community and in our environment. The majority of farms in Madison County specifically are actually frequented by the Athens community. Therefore, the air pollution that is absorbed into our environment in Madison County is being traveled and included into residents and travelers of the Athens community and beyond. You know, regarding all of this, we've had experiences with smells similar to urine, caustic chemicals, plastic burning, and other strong foul smells from the plant specifically, where we cannot enjoy our property. Our garden is absorbing all of this air pollution, and we cannot sit on our back porch. Some of the health effects that we've actually received since living here and are specific to GRP, whereas at previous locations with the same amount of air pollution or in a similar locale, we did not experience prior, are drying, waking up with a dry, itchy throat, heightened allergies, and runny eyes and nose, as well as mucocal exchanges in the morning. Again, this did not affect us previous to our move here when living in similar locales. Regarding EPD air permit, specifically with GRP Madison and GRP Franklin plants, it is my personal belief that GRP cannot provide trusted or accurate metrics individually instead of using a third-party consulting firm, as EPD has been used for previous permit applications with Georgia Renewable Power, Franklin, and Georgia Renewable Power Madison for other permits that EPD is the umbrella of. Otherwise, I really hope that this permit does not get passed for the health and well-being of our next generation. My health might be affected, but hopefully the children that follow me and the next future generations will not have to deal with the difficulties that we strive to make our air and water clean here in Georgia. Lastly, I want to share that just because perhaps Franklin and Madison counties may have a different economic status than other areas, again, related to Athens, does not mean that we don't care about our environment, which I think is well shown here at our public comment and continued written comments and sharing with our community members and concerned citizens in the area. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to finding out the announcement on this hearing.
Thank you for your comment. Next, I have Ruth Ann and Drago Tazanovich. You have indicated you would like to make a comment. I will unmute your microphone and you can speak.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Georgia EPD, for hosting this public hearing and giving us the opportunity to comment. My name is Ruth Ann Tasanovich. I live in Madison County, 1.5 miles from the Madison, Georgia Renewable Power biomass plant. I have learned from my own personal experience living near this biomass plant that it is far from clean. It has caused me great stress and worry, affected the quality of my life and my health. The plant emits tons and tons of pollutants per year known to be hazardous to people's health. Among the most dangerous is particulate matter. These particles are so small that they can enter and lodge deep in our lungs, trigger asthma attacks, cause cardiovascular disease, lung cancer, and even death. Recent research has shown that inhaling air pollutants, particularly small particulate matter, may lead to or exacerbate a number of autoimmune diseases. Madison County Clean Power Coalition has collected 2 years of particulate matter 2.5 data using purple air monitors installed at locations near the Madison GRP plant. These monitors were correlated with EPA EPD air monitors. The purple air monitor data with a two-year average of 9.4 micrograms per cubic meter indicate higher levels of 2.5 particulate matter than most of the state of Georgia, including the metro Atlanta area. And this information was gleaned from a graph that was comparative data on this graph from a Georgia EPD 2020 ambient air surveillance report. So in comparing our data with that, we're higher than Metro Atlanta. The PM 2.5 emissions from the GRP plant are dangerous to people in the surrounding area. In the short term, people living near the plant have already experienced a number of pollution-related health issues, including respiratory problems and headaches. Long-term and unknown health issues will occur as exposure continues over time. Previously, in excellent health, I became very ill and was diagnosed with 2 autoimmune diseases 1 year after the Madison GRP plant fired up. Coincidence or cause, I'll never know. The World Health Organization revised air quality guidelines in 2021 in order to save lives by reducing preventable airborne pollution deaths. The revised recommendations, produced from evidence-based data, lowered the target levels for key pollutants, including PM 2.5, nitrous dioxide, carbon monoxide, and sulfur dioxide. And these are all pollutants that GRP plants emit. The EPD limits for these pollutions are too high. WHO guidelines should be used instead. Now, regarding the permit itself, section 3.3.4 of the permit states, particulate matter and opacity limits do not apply during periods of startup, shutdown, and malfunction. I take issue with this. Data obtained recently from the EPD shows that the Madison GRP plant logged 131 shutdown and startup events between January 1, 2020 and August 7th, 2022. The plant is not operating in a steady state. We were told at one time there'd be 2 maintenance events per year. So instead we've got, 131 shutdowns in 2.5 and shutdowns and startups in 2.5 years. The excessive number of shutdowns and startup events, combined with the fact that pollution control devices are not operational during these events, is cause for alarm. The Franklin GRP plant has the same problem as does Madison. My questions, which I know EPD is not going to answer tonight, are emissions during these startup shutdown events captured by continuous monitoring equipment or in any other way? Are these uncontrolled emissions reported to the EPD? If not, the permit should define a process to measure and report emissions during startup and shutdown events. Fines should be levied for the excessive emissions and excessive startup and shutdown events. In conclusion, the Title V permits for both Madison and Franklin GRP plants should be denied in order to protect the health of the many people affected by these operationally defective major source polluting plants. Thank you very much for considering my comments.
And my name is Drago Tasanovic, and the thing I want to address in the Thursday, August 25th edition of the Madison County Journal, the current president, Charles Abbott of GRP, stated that GRP Madison operates and will continue to operate in compliance with all applicable permits, standards, and legal requirements. I think the problem we all have is the allowable limits set by the EPA and by the EPD are too high. There's probably nobody at this meeting tonight that can deny that the limits where they set are still harmful to human beings, and scientific research would back that up. We need to get those limits lowered to the point where it's really safe for people to live near facilities like GRP or other plants. And until the EPA and the EPD step forward and do what they're supposed to be doing, protect the environment and the people, and lower these point levels to the point where people can live with them, we'll have this problem going on forever. Our hospitals are full of people with all types of ailments related to pollution. We need to stop this from happening, and it stops when the EPD and the EPA start setting limits that will protect the public. And that is the main reason they're in existence, protect the public and the environment. So I'd like to see steps taken to do that and reflect current research about levels that are safe for humans. And I would therefore be in favor of this permit not being given because research needs to be done until we have those safe limits in place. Thank you.
Thank you both for your comments. Next, I have Leanne Jones, who has indicated that you would like to make a comment. I will unmute your microphone and you can speak. I am sorry, Leanne. It seems to be giving me a hard time. If you'll just hold for a minute. There, can you speak?
Yeah, I think I unmuted myself though, just so you know.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Leanne and I live in Colbert. I wish for my comments to apply to both locations. My husband and I purchased our first and hopefully forever home in December 2015. It's a circa 1900 historic fixer-upper in nature, and we're very proud of how far we've come in progress since purchase. I never dreamed of such an experience. Fast forward to the summer of 2019, after several tests, scans, and biopsies, I was diagnosed with a rare and incurable immune dysregulated disease, which primarily affects my lungs. It also involves my skin and lymph nodes too. It has been and continues to be scary at times, although it appears to be under control for now. I never dreamed of such an experience. Just a few months later, in December 2019, I started to learn more about what was causing all the racket and mountains of railroad ties a mile away from my home, GRP. In a rural residential community, a massive biomass plant had initiated operations, which included legally burning railroad ties as a source of fuel. Thanks largely to citizenry time and efforts, this nonsensical practice of burning railroad ties became outlawed in August 2020, but a lot of trust was lost along the way. I never dreamed of such an experience. Since then, I've tried very hard to stay up to date on the myriad issues regarding GRP, whether it's air or water or noise pollution, etc. Sometimes it feels like staying informed on this activity, permit applications, and potential health ramifications thereof is a full-time job, and I'm grateful for the help from knowledgeable friends, neighbors, and media. Now, as I sit here in attendance of yet another meeting about GRP, I remain unequivocally concerned for my family's and neighbors' health in this rural residential area, and continue to wonder if it's safe to stay in my home because of GRP's pollutant emissions. I never dreamed of such an experience. To close, I respectfully request that the Georgia EPD pursue the following 3 actions: deny the subject permit applications, implement EPD assigned monitoring of pollutant emissions output from GRP, and lower the thresholds for allowable levels of pollutant emissions so that they're aligned well with the World Health Organization. Thank you for the opportunity to share these sentiments with you. It's never too late to do the right thing.
Thank you, Leanne, for your comment. Lastly, as far as hands raised, I have David Ramsey, who has raised his hand indicating that he would like to make a comment. I will unmute your microphone and you can speak. David, we cannot hear you. David, I will come back to you. Next, I have James Klein, who has indicated that he would like to make a comment. I will unmute your microphone and you can speak.
All right. I have a farm with 2 miles from the facility. I no longer stay there overnight because of headaches. I'm a retired CPA, started out in the wood products industry, working for GP and LP. I know a little bit about what's going on. I want you to listen closely to the applicant, Chris, because there's a lot of misinformation from his own statements. And other people have kind of touched on this, but He mentioned that it is up to a 65 megawatt facility. I want to reiterate with the other people who have commented that it is nowhere near this, and they tout the importance of this facility. It is not generating near that. It is often in operating and not operating. I verified this with a thermal imaging scope when I don't think it's running. I'm close enough to hear. It shuts down a lot. No other plant could operate in the red or profitably with this much shutdown. Other things that Chris wanted to talk about are actually your information discussed the what was burned at the facility. You glossed over the things that weren't harmful. Bark, sawdust are not as harmful. And then you said other things. It would have been nice if you had been transparent and listed everything that's burned there based on their production data. That information should be public, what they're burning, and you should have it. And you should have listed everything that they're burning. You did not. You need to be more transparent. I want to reiterate the statements that were made about averages. Indeed, you are taking averages. It would be the equivalent of getting pulled over by a cop going 120 and telling the cop, well, I was just going 20 a few minutes ago. And the cop saying, okay, please don't be that cop. Please be a legitimate enforcer of rules and laws. You cannot get compliance with laws if you do not enforce laws. It is imperative that you act as a protector of the environment, which is what you're called. I really encourage you to please, please, please do your job. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next, I have Jerry Wilson, who has indicated that he would like to make a comment. I will unmute your microphone and you can speak.
Hi, I'm Jerry Wilson. I live across across the highway. I can see the GRP plant from our organic garden. And my husband has been taking videos, and I sent one just recently to Karen Hayes with EPD of the plant just billowing emissions following the steam release and startup. And these startup emissions are not included in the air emissions data of toxic pollutants accounted for in the data EPD looks at in consideration of the Title V air emissions permit. Startups at the plant, as was noted by Ruth Ann earlier, we were promised 2 startups a year. The startups average, according to EPD's data, that they have gotten, not themselves, but from GRP, is 3 times a month. In 2021 and 22, that was 3 times a month. The first year in 2019, the startup was 72 times. So, yeah, so this is based on Madison County data. And I had talked with EPD. I had not gotten the information on the Franklin County emission count startups. And we're expecting to get that soon, but it should be very similar. And due to the extremely inefficient operation of both GRP plants, evidenced in this number of shutdown startups, and consideration of the additional truly excessive toxic air emissions that these startups provide, I think EPD should factor these into looking at this Title V permit. I understand that that is not accounted for, and it doesn't make sense. 2 times a year, if they were to start up and shut down, I could understand that you might not include that information. But I think that it's essential that be addressed, as has been noted by Ruth Ann and Draco. That is my main information right now that I want to share with you. And I'm going to ask you to deny the permit. I'm going to ask you that EPD start monitoring these two plants instead of relying on GRP, who have not been good neighbors as they promised to be. In this 3-year period, the noise is still excessive. That's okay. It's still excessive. The smell is still there. The lights are there at night. The startup shutdown is just, it stays in the back of your head. You can be outside on the land and you just can't get away from it. And so please deny the permit and lower the threshold of particulate matter that's allowed.
I understand you have Jeff Powers with you, and that he has indicated he would like to make a comment. Please go ahead and speak.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Jeff Powers. My wife and I live on Highway 198, directly across from the plant, less than a quarter of a mile from the stack. When the west wind is predominantly 80% out of the year coming our way, I endure particulates like wood dust, ash, fly ash that comes from the hopper over there that unloads, that disperses it in the trucks when they leave the plant. When those trucks come by, untarped or tarped, blows that fly ash into our residence right there. My windows, never keep them clean. It's impossible. We do not sleep with windows open, even when the weather is good enough to sleep anymore. You cannot sleep with your windows anymore. There's ammonia smells that'll knock you down in your yard when you're outside. All right, and that happens quite a bit. I witness weekly trips where they start up and where they trip and start up again. That smoke bellows out of that chimney there, that stack. This is all falling right on top of us, ma'am. It is unhealthy. My wife and I endure headaches like we never have before. Never knew what a headache was before. That I endure and that she endures. I have a cough now that I can't shake. They're dumping the stuff on us, and there has to be something done about it. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir, for your comment. I have a phone number 706. It's the only phone number listed in our chat. So I'm going to unmute your microphone and you can speak.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So this is Catherine Stinson and I live in Comer. Yeah, I don't really even know where to begin, but I feel like the last man who spoke just spoke for all of us. I mean, I could hear in his voice almost like he's hiding from this beast that's coming at them, and that's what I'm feeling from a lot of our community. We're getting, like he said, it's upon us. We're getting bombarded by this, and we haven't had much choice in the matter. It's just really preposterous. But that being said, I live a lot farther away from the plant than he does in Madison County. I live in Comer, but even so, shortly after the plant opened, I began smelling this really strange smell I'd never smelled before, having eyes watering, lots of different weird feelings, what's going on with this, and I started to realize it has to be this because it never did exist before. We can't always prove these things because they're vague, but there's too many people in our community saying this is what we're experiencing before, this is what we're experiencing after. So I'm pleading that the EPD and EPA take a look at that and consider it. We have any other motivation to say that we don't want something like this other than we want our lives to be good. We want our children's lives to be good. We want our planet to be good. And all this time, I always thought that the EPA and the EPD, I thought that the mission was to protect the environment. And so I'm really flabbergasted. I can't understand why the EPA and EPD is going to continue to potentially allow both GRP plants. I was speaking for both Franklin and Madison just because, they're doing similar things. So for the people in Franklin County, they're experiencing that as well. But to emit this excess and particulate matter that would endanger our people and endanger our environment, I'm just pleading with the EPD to reconsider and just deny this Title V permit to both of these GRP plants. The other thing that I would be asking would be that the EPD can implement, and either they design the monitoring system or some other third party that is, I guess, a legitimate third party that doesn't have any financial gain in the system here, that we can create some proper monitoring emissions for both of these plants that would also include those startup emissions. Also, I really think we need to look at, like so many of others have said, to lower the limits of these emissions. Why are we allowing the limits to be so high to where our people are getting sick? And this is a cumulative effect on our environment, and the EPD and EPA should know that with their studies. So we've only had a few years in. It's only going to get worse if we keep letting this happen. So please, please, please do not allow this Title V permit to go through on either of these plants. Thank you for allowing us to speak here. I hope.
Thank you for your comment. Let me wait just a minute to see if there's anyone else that would like to make a comment that has not. If we do not have any others that indicate that they would like to make a comment, then Gina, I will unmute your microphone in just a moment. I would like to check with David Ramsey, who had indicated earlier that he wanted to make a comment and was not able to speak. If you would like to, please raise your hand and I will unmute your microphone. Gina, I will unmute your microphone and you can make an additional comment.
Thank you. I would like the opportunity to address comments made by Chris Poole about our purple air monitors and our purple air data. In May of 2020, we set up 2 purple air monitors, 7/10 of a mile from the plant, one to the northeast of the plant and one to the southeast of the plant. Both of these monitors were located on private residences. We recorded data for a year and I submitted that data once I got it all downloaded and went through it. I threw out the outliers. I followed the EPA's instructions on how to interpret this data. I might remind you that I have an associate's degree in general studies. I am just a normal citizen who was trying to find out what was in my air, and I had to educate myself about all of this. So yes, my learning curve was steep and it took a long time to get to that point where I understood it. But getting back to, I submitted this data to Karen Hayes. And within just a day or so, she came back and asked me if I would like to co-locate my monitors in Athens, working with the ambient air division of the EPD's air division, and co-locate our monitors with the federal monitors. And we accepted that. So for 3 months, we took our monitors offline And we cited them next to the federal government's monitors, the EPA's monitors, and they recorded 3 months of data. We were told that a 3-month data set would be a good picture of how our monitors were performing. After those monitors were co-located and ran, we were then given the data that they recorded, as well as a correction factor for both monitors specific to each monitor. So each monitor has its own correction factor. So then I went back into the data and applied the correction factor to our monitors. I would like to note at this point that the EPA has a wonderful page on purple air monitors, many resources on how to use a purple air monitor. They recognize them as being 93% accurate when you use the EPA's correction code. I have used the EPA's correction code just for kicks and giggles on our data and have found that it actually shows higher levels. So I would be happy to apply the EPA's correction factor, although I know mine is more accurate, even though at times it seems lower. We've used this data, and the whole reason that we put the purple air monitors in the vicinity is because no one at all has told us what we are breathing. And I think you've heard enough from individuals about what it is like to live with 8 hours of this being shoved into your lungs. It is in our homes. It's not just in our yards. Some of us cannot breathe at night when we're sleeping because the emissions are so strong and they make us sick. So if there are any other questions about the data that I have collected, and what I presented was a very short snapshot of what we have endured for years, you are more than welcome to contact us at mccpc@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to let you see our data and look at our data and analyze our data and tell us what you think. But we did this because we were forced to do it. And thank you for allowing that rebuttal of his comments.
Thank you, Gina, for your comments. Marie Antonetti has indicated you would like to make another comment. I will unmute your microphone and you can speak.
Yes, thank you again for receiving my additional comment. I just want to build off of what Gina presented regarding this specific air permit and purple air monitors. As a concerned citizen and homeowner in Madison County and becoming more knowledgeable about GRP Madison, which again, I would like this comment if included for GRP Madison and GRP Franklin plants, as I do have family actually in Franklin County as well that are being affected by GRP Franklin. I relied heavily on the data provided by these two purple air monitors, just looking at purple air monitors air pollution and monitoring map, which is publicly available, so that I could inform myself of the air that I'm breathing, and considered buying one actually for myself in my own home. Instead, I have medical grade H13 air purifiers to clean my home, as well as a highly rated MERV 14 air filter for my AC unit that I actually change monthly in order to mitigate any possible pollution coming into my home, which is my own personal sense of being able to control the situation that I could only put my hands on. The purple air monitor information that I'm sure Ms. Ward has presented already to EPD, in my looking at it while using it to inform myself of the air pollution from GRP Madison, 9 times out of 10 in my personal experience of looking at the data presented and available publicly was always higher than the PM 2.5 or PM 10 as well, for larger particulate matter, than the Athens or Metro Atlanta regions. So I thank Gina and the Madison County Clean Power Coalition as always, as well as the rest of our concerned citizens for their diligent efforts to deny GRP this specific permit here on today's call. But the purple air monitors are really great resource and tool that all concerned citizens, I'm sure, have used that information and mapping data from those specific air monitors that Ms. Gina Ward has discussed. Lastly, I also want to discuss, I believe, Mr. Klein's comment on the different materials that are being burned in the incinerators at GRP Madison specifically. I could be mistaken, but I recall reading and not educating myself on construction and demolition debris that would also include asbestos and other caustic and related hazardous materials regarding air pollutants to humans that have been verified from field research and EPA and others. That GRP Madison specifically has been burning since they started firing up. In my experience here in Comer, again, within a 3-mile radius, that smells and all of my experiences are more than the 3 times a month that another concerned citizen raised on the startup processes of the plant in Madison County. So this is not something that is 2 times a year. This is quite frequent. And again, I thank you for taking my additional comment. Thank everyone for the concern on protecting our environment. And again, I vehemently hope that the EPD denies this permit.
Thank you, Maria, for your comment. Mac Adams, you have indicated that you would like to make a comment. I will unmute your microphone and you can speak.
Yes, I'm Cheryl Adams. I live about 7/10 of a mile from the GRP plant in Colbert, but I'd also like to speak for the one in Franklin County also. It has been terrible for us since GRP started up. At night, we have headaches. In the morning, I usually can't even speak because my throat is so raspy. And when I get up at night, I feel disoriented. I can look out my window and see the stack. And I usually know which way the stack is blowing because I can see it. And like this morning, it was real still and the pollution was so bad you couldn't hardly see, probably 200 feet in front of you. We also got in the car and drove down the road 2 miles each direction, and the smog was not nearly as bad. When we came back through Colbert, it was real bad here. So there is a big difference in the pollution that we have here and the surrounding areas several miles out. This has just been horrible to me because I live here and my husband lives here. Next to me is my son and his wife. I have a granddaughter and her husband and a 1.5-year old great grandchild that lives in right here in this area, my brother and his wife. And it hurts me knowing what it's doing to me because I know it's doing it to other people also. There's so many people that would like to speak, but they don't know how to get on Zoom. I feel like that we should have a public meeting where the community can gather and speak about this, and you can actually see how many people this is affecting because you're only getting a very small portion of the people. I have begged EPD to monitor them at night. As far as I know, there's never been anyone out at night to see what they're doing. And that's when they do most of the burning. Most of the smoke is at that time, and the air is heavier then, and it just holds it in on us. And I feel like sometimes I'm in a garage with a diesel tractor running. You just can't imagine how bad it has been on the quality of life for us. I've been tempted to sell. We have discussed that. But I know anybody that I sell this house to is going to go through the same thing that I'm going through. And I just, in good conscience, cannot do that to anybody else. I just wish you would deny this. I don't think that they're being monitored enough. There is too many shutdowns and startups that are not monitored at all. And that emission does not even count toward their total. So if they're allowed 250 tons, and that's what they say they're doing, then you know it's probably twice that much. It's just not right that this is done to the community. And I just wish the EPD would step up and protect us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. At this point, I do not have any more hands raised. If there's anyone else that would like to make a comment, please raise your hand or put a comment in the chat box to indicate so. Thank you for your attendance at this public hearing. We have now provided everyone who indicated that they wish to make a comment today an opportunity to speak. EPD will consider these and all other relevant comments received throughout the public comment period that officially ends at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, September 6, 2022. Following a thorough evaluation of all comments, EPD will include the comments received and responses to those comments in the permit narratives in the permitting actions. Thank you for your interest in protecting Georgia's environment and your participation in this permitting process. The time is currently 7:08 p.m. and this hearing is now adjourned.